In September of 2021, I had this bright idea that I wanted to hike America's deadliest hike. And it was on that trip that I found out that I was going to be moving out of Texas. And so God gave me, when I moved from Michigan to Texas, God gave me like a 3 month heads up, right? But He gave me nearly a year. He let me know about a year in advance that He was moving me out of Texas. And, for those of you who are familiar with this podcast, I love Texas. It was somewhere that I had wanted to be for a long time. I didn't move to the part of Texas that I really wanted to move to, but I ended up somewhere that I still really found joy in, was really excited about. And so leading up into the move, um, I didn't know where I was going. I had an idea of what the area would look like a little bit, but I didn't really know where I was going. And so closer to the time to move, guys started telling me where I was going, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. That's not. I don't want to do that. Right? This is not what I want to. This not this. Out of all the places, that is not where I want to go. But I stayed obedient. Right? I started, looking it up or watching people actually record videos driving through cities, and like driving down streets. So that helped me out a lot. Watching YouTube videos of people driving around the area, so that I can see it, right? So I can see a little bit, because I had never been there before. I can see a little bit of, what it looks like there. And so it got me a little more excited, like, okay, I'm trusting you, God. You got a plan. I'm going to go. And I started experiencing so much warfare to even come out of Texas. And so in my mind, I was like, you know what? That must have been the devil. It had to have been the devil, because I already don't want to go, right? Must have been the devil trying to trick me into going somewhere that I really don't want to go, because I'm experiencing so much of a fight to even get out of Texas. Like, there was so much going on in my life. At that same time, while I was like preparing myself for a move, it was the most, when I think about the different things that I've experienced in my life, even though that's kind of fresh, this is something I will never forget, because it's so memorable on how much I was crying and stressed out and frustrated. Um, it was a really wild time, and so I finally crossed the border, got up out of Texas, and it was the wildest thing that as soon as I crossed the border to come up out of there, I felt a relief, like a weight had been lifted off of me, and I was no longer fighting. It's like God, like the enemy knew God's plan, and he wanted to fight me, to try to keep me from going, to keep me from doing it, right? I didn't fight like this moving from Michigan to Texas. It was kind of, I had a little, a couple hiccups or whatever, but it was nothing like this. And I'm like, oh, like God can't be in this, because I must not be supposed to be going to this place if I'm like going through it like this. And so, anyways, I go to the place, I get here, and I get me a hotel room for 3 days. I get me a hotel room for 3 days because I'm a little bit bougie, and I care a lot about where I'm gonna lay my head at. And that's really, I can only afford the 3 days. So I told myself, you know what? I got 3 days, kind of like my same mood of Texas. If you guys listen to, what is that, season 2 of my podcast? Um I can't remember what the episode was called. But anyways, I shared the story of when I first got to Texas and what I did. So I got a hotel when I first got there too, because I didn't know where I was gonna stay. And so because I had a history with God, it kind of went the same way, where I didn't know where I was going to live until I got here, etc. I had been looking up places, but I hadn't even applied for anywhere, kind of like Texas, until I actually got to the place. And so I'm like, you know what, God, you got 3 days. I was also trying to like limit God, right? Because in my mind, I just was like, I was rejecting everything about living here and coming here. And I was like, you know what? If all else fails, I'm going back to Michigan. Like, I'm going back home. My sister got a second bedroom. Like, I'm going to sleep in her guest room. I'm gonna make that home, right? I have my mind made up. And so I was like, we got 3 days. I can't afford to live like this in this hotel for longer than this. And God, this all you got for me because I'm coming up out of here. But within 3 days, I not only not moved, but found the place. I found the place the very next day, the very next morning. Like everything, that all the doors opened so quick. So I drove around the area. There was really only I was very limited on where I wanted to stay, right? And what I had already looked up and I knew that I really wanted, like I had already had my mindset from the beginning, like I really want to stay at this place, but I don't got no job, right? So I ain't want to like push God, to the limit. Like, you know what, God, give me this. Knowing I ain't got no job, how am I gonna be able to afford that, right? I haven't had a job since May of 2021. So I ain't been wanting to, to try to take my faith to a whole new level to see if God is God going to give me this too. I ain't really been overdoing it. I've been trying to live a what do I what is it called? I don't know. I can't think of the actual name because listen, I don't know. I don't think I've ever shared it before, but I experienced a ton of warfare to even record, right? So I fight to record these episodes. I have been fighting consistently to even get this episode out. So my mind is kind of what do I say? Like in a stuck place because my mouth hasn't been once I put my mic out, my mouth hasn't been flowing. Like I've just been experiencing so much turmoil and taunting. A lot of wild things has been happening. But anyways, so I want to go ahead and get this out. Okay, so I found I saw the place that I really wanted, but I'm like, how am I gonna afford to even live there? And I just decided, like, you know what? Let me go look at it. Went to look at it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna apply for it. Like I just knew like God was telling me to do it, right? Well, I turned on my praise and worship and he started speaking to me through that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. And so I went for it, got the place, etc. But I'm still kicking and screaming. Stuff is happening and the doors are opening and God is working everything out. But I'm still throwing tantrums and I'm crying because I'm like, why am I here? Like, I don't want to be here. And so my grandmother was trying to, like, bring me back down to ground zero, telling me, like, you're just experiencing a culture shock. You're not used to living in an area like that. So just keep calm. God has a purpose in the plan. Just, listen to him and hear him out and figure it out, whatever. But I'm throwing tantrums, like I'm crying it out. I'm having moments of sadness, etc. Or whatever. So I had to my episodes from what September to November of 2023 are the episodes that were produced from that place, right? From that place of fighting and turmoil, and sadness and grief of just trying to figure out, I'm like, God, is this really you? Sorry. Whew. I didn't know I was gonna be crying. Feeling like maybe I made a Jonah move. Whew. And that God was punishing me because I just, even though I love the roof over my head, And there was little things, that I'm like, oh, I like this, I like this. It just was like it felt like a punishment, right? And so, I was throwing full on tantrums like, God, what are you doing? Because it just wasn't making any sense to me. They would take me from a place that I really loved and enjoyed, that I really wanted to be, to take me somewhere I was like, nah, dog. No way. From the beginning, no. Right? So, anyways, dang, I wasn't expecting that. But, anyway, so I, I sit with God and I talk to God and I cry out and I'm studying. And I'm like, like, why do I feel like I'm in a prison? Why do I feel like I'm imprisoned in this place that you brought me to, right? You put me here. Why do I feel like this? And in the middle of that tantrum, that crying, because I went so far as to say, like, I feel like I live in a luxury prison, like I'm in a luxury jail. And that still small voice was like, the roof over your head, nobody has ever laid their head in. You're the first person to have ever laid their head in this. Yet you think, and you are saying that you're in jail. Who goes to this kind of jail? What kind of person gets put in this kind of jail? What kind of prison is this? This is a jail. This is punishment. Look at your life. You can do what you want when you get ready. You are in a beautiful home, in a beautiful area. What is your problem? But everything that I'm used to having, especially, and then eat, like, it's just a lot of things that I find joy in. I no longer have had those things in, where I live at, right? I don't have any of that. And so I had to realize, not only was God trying to, well, he had spent 2 years already developing me for this, but I didn't realize it. I thought I was getting developed and created for something else, but he was developing me for this. And I had to pause and realize that, you know, okay, hold on. If God put me here, God, give me your eyes to see and your ears to hear what you are doing and what is going on. Because I can't keep having these breakdowns where I'm crying, I'm calling my family, and they pulling up quick. They want to pull up every single time because they know where I live, and they like, Jesus did that. Jesus put you there. Why would Jesus do that, right? Every time I call them crying or send a text message crying, they want to put, especially my mama, she ready to pull up every time. And even when they came here, my grandma was like, "You live in you live in the witness protection program." I'm like, bro, I feel like that. I felt like I was living in the witness protection program. But when I start praying, like, God, give me your eyes to see, and your ears to hear, he remember I told y'all I don't have a job, and around this time last year I shared that he's not allowing me to go and get a job, right? God isn't allowing me to work for anybody. And so he had led me last year to start doing DoorDash. And so he led me again to do door, because I'm like, you got me. I'm living somewhere, that's way more expensive than I've ever lived, that I've paid for on my own, and I ain't got no job. What are we doing? And he was, you know, like, I'm like, how am I going to make the money to live like this? Like, what's the plan, God? But he has me doing DoorDash, right? And I'm like, nah, I have so many other things I could have been doing, right? Some of the things I have expertise in. I have a whole business that is legitimate that I could be running. Why do you have me doing DoorDash? But Um, like, just let me. I gotta wait till y'all hear it. So I'm getting paid, remind you, for the last 2 years. A part of what he was doing is he was developing me into a homemaker, right? Um, and so I've been shopping. I rarely deliver anybody's food. I'm almost always shopping for somebody, right? Grocery shopping. And I never felt like I needed to be developed in that area. Like, I know how to grocery shop. I know how to buy groceries. I know how to look for stuff and put it in a cart. But God knows, like, when we think we know everything or we got something down pat, his ways are so much greater and so much higher, because there were areas and parts of the grocery store I had never been in, or products that I never known of. Now I have an awareness of them because I'm shopping for other people, right? Um, and so I'm learning about different health stuff or different recipes and different things because of this, right? So yeah, so I'm almost always shopping for somebody, and just delivering it or whatever. And I get paid really well to do it. Really well. And I'm like, I comfortably pay my bills every month, because I'm doing something as simple as um, shopping for somebody's groceries and delivering. Now, I have full control of not only my schedule when I do it and when I don't, and I can decide, even if I am deciding like, okay, I'm gonna do DoorDash or Instacart for the next couple of hours. I also still decide which orders I'm gonna take and which orders I'm not gonna take. And so there will be times where I'm like, this is not worth my money. I mean, it's not worth my this is the money's not worth my time. It may take a long drive, or it may be a really large order, etc. And because I spend time with God daily, not only in reading my Bible, but listening to worship, or just listening, just sitting and being quiet and listening to Him, we have certain conversations. And so when an offer will be presented to me to go shop for something or to drive to a certain area to do a delivery, sometimes in my mind I'll be like, I'm not going to go do that. Like, I'm gonna chill and wait for another offer or something, because that's not something, that's time consuming or whatever. God would be like, He'll have me go look at the area, right? And the name of a city, a street, or something will pop up, and God will just be like, "Do it." It'll be something that reminded me of a conversation we had, or something that was written in His Word, right? For instance, how do I think of a name right quick? Because I don't want to say a name, and then the weirdos try to like Google the name of the street and find out where I'm at. But because that's something else that I'm doing. No, I am being more mindful of sharing my location moving forward. So until God tells me like it's okay to let people know where you live, like, nobody knows. Nobody's gonna know. My immediate family knows that, and we're gonna keep it like that. But okay, so let me speed this up because it's already 10 minutes in. The I'm just gonna say the name of a street or something will remind me of something that we had already talked about earlier in the day when I was studying. So I would be like, okay, I was accepted, or a guy would just be like, he had just automatically put it in my heart or my mind and be like he might have me message them um a question or something, and I find out that they're elderly or disabled or something, and he's like, yeah, accept that order. I intentionally had you have this conversation before you decided if you're going to do it or not, because I needed you to hear or see that, that they're disabled, or whatever their situation may be, and the offer is just because like they really need some assistance. They may not have a lot to give or whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I every time I end up going on the drive, I'm essentially getting paid to go do what me and God are already talking about. How do I explain this? Okay, so I may be taking a 20 or 30-minute drive, right? And as I'm on this drive, I'm seeing something, or God is reminding me of something that He had already promised me, or that I really wanted to do, etc. For instance, I've wanted a horse since my younger 20s, and my boyfriend at the time was gonna buy me a horse. We had found the horse, we were gonna go try to go get it, but I lived in an apartment in the area that I lived in. There was I would have to keep my horse at a stable, and like it wouldn't have much of a relationship with me because it would have to be there all the time. And so I just was like, I need to wait till I get a home in order to have a horse, and that way it's my horse and ain't nobody else, it's not with somebody else for long periods of time. So I hadn't got it. Now I'm driving down the street, and I see men with horses every now and then, but for the most part, like what I kept seeing frequently is women coming out of their yards on their horses, going down the street, taking a ride down the road to wherever they're going on their horses. There, and I'm like, yo, I've all like this is what I've always wanted. I just never been able to, like, especially living in Texas and going to a lot of rodeos. It increased my desire for a horse even more. And so I'm like I'm seeing, I never seen this in Texas, but now I'm seeing like people on their horses walking down the street, like they can just travel down the road on their horse. Like, what? This is insane, right? And so God is He's just been reminding me, like, didn't you say you wanted this? And didn't you want this, etc.? And I'm like, yeah, okay, now I'm starting to see the light. So again, I was praying, like, God, give me your eyes to see and your ears to hear. So He has used something as simple as me shopping for somebody and delivering it to them so that so that I can, for free, go and not only get familiar with the area that I live in, but so that I can see what He's doing and why He has me here, right? And so I'm like, okay, God, I'm starting to see what you see, and I'm starting to hear what you hear. And so He has me studying the book of Genesis again, right? We're going back to the beginning to study the book of Genesis. And He was showing me that from the beginning in Genesis 1, He created the place, right? He created the place and the entire environment before He created the people and He put them in it. And once He created the environment, He created the people and put them in it. He looked back and He said, "This is good." And so I know, like, so often I'm going to say we pray for something, and we, hope for things. And when it doesn't look like what we want it to look like, we might start kicking and screaming, thinking God is punishing us, when He's like, like, I wouldn't have put you in this place, at this job, in this relationship, in this environment. He might be moving you to another state. He probably has already moved you to another state, right? Put you here because I saw that it was good. I created it before you got there because I knew that it was good. My Where I live was created before, like it was being created while I was in Texas. So again, nobody has ever lived here before but me. He Everything about it I love, and it's something that I want. It's where, like, everything about my home is how I would want it, right? He made sure that it was good while He was creating me somewhere separately, and then He put me in it, right? And so he was reminding me, like, Jessica, like I wouldn't put you anywhere that I didn't think was good and that you could be fruitful in and multiply in. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. And so then He reminded me of Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, something we quote all the time. We see on, little Hobby Lobby stuff. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. I put you in a place to prosper you, not to harm you, right? He puts us in these positions to be so that they can bless us and keeps us safe from the hurt, harm, and danger, right? But he not only puts us in these places, sometimes we think that you just put me here because you need me to do a job, right? So, like, even when I was reading Genesis chapter 1, God was telling Adam and Eve that they were going, like, well, first of all, Adam, but to work the land, right? To be fruitful and multiply. And so we can take that as, okay, God just wants me to be a good steward over this place. But the reality of it is that God wants us to also find joy in that place. He doesn't want us to just be a good steward, but He has orchestrated the place for us to find joy, right? Um, in studying Genesis, right, I ended up at Genesis chapter 13. And in Genesis chapter 13, when Abraham and Lot had to separate because they both were too wealthy and they were dealing with some conflict. Abraham told Lot, Lot, you decide, you pick where you're gonna go first, and then I'll go, the opposite direction. So Lot, I had never, as many times as I have read over, first of all, the book of Genesis, but Genesis chapter 13, I never paid attention to this, right? So in Genesis chapter 13, verses 10, it says that Lot took a long look at he took a long look at the land, and he saw that it was fertile, right? So he saw that the land was not only fertile, but that the area was well watered, just like the garden of the Lord and like the beautiful land of Eden. I'm sorry, the beautiful land of Egypt. The garden of the Lord is the garden of Eden. And so Lot sees that the land is it's the land is fertile. I can grow, crops and stuff here for food or to sell whatever it is that he was going to do. But it's well watered too, like the Garden of Eden and like Egypt, right? So we can, when we read through Genesis, we see that Lot was in Egypt with Abraham. So that's how he knows that Egypt is well watered. But it stuck out to me, and I'm like, how does he know what the garden of the Lord looks like? How does he know what the Garden of Eden looks like? Because God didn't take the place away. It was still visible to the eye. It was where you could see it, but you couldn't go, right? Genesis chapter 3, verse 24 says that God drove man out, and he stationed the cherubim and the flaming rolling sword east of the Garden of Eden to guard the way of the tree of life. So he put security around it to keep, humans from going in there and taking pieces of that fruit and causing more harm to themselves. So even though I'm like, whoa, I never even thought about if they had ever saw it for themselves. But obviously, Lot has seen what the Garden of Eden. Because they weren't drawing pictures and painting back then, was they? we don't have any proof of that. So he had to have seen the Garden of Eden with his eyes, but couldn't go in the physical. And so he's looking at the area where Sodom and Gomorrah is, thinking it's beautiful, and this is where he's going to like be fruitful and grow and develop and be successful. And it actually ended up being a place that caused him so much turmoil and snatched so much away from him. But so God was showing me that too, like, you know, when our eyes, like if we aren't positioning our eyes properly, not that anything was wrong with North Texas, but like God was just showing me that we need his eyes to see what it is, right? To see what it is he's doing and where he has us placed. Because even though Lot picked first, Abraham could have took a loss because he had to, just get what was left over. And he ended up getting Canaan that was very much fruitful and where he could multiply and grow and his lineage could develop or whatever. So he ended up in a really good place, right? He ended up we know from the book of Joshua, I don't want to go too deep because I don't want this episode to be too long, but we know from the book of Joshua that the land was beautiful, right? That Abraham ended up getting. And so I think it's so important for us to be in prayer, um, and asking God to help us to see stuff with His eyes and hear with His ears so that we can have the proper visual, right? Matthew chapter 6, verses 22 to 23 says, "Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is." It has been with while I am driving around the area that I live in that not only am I seeing the things that I've always wanted and I had a desire for, I just would have never figured this out for myself. That God is showing me, even though I live in a more expensive state, because I'm like, that was really like God, like even the things, the goals that I want to accomplish and the things I wanted to do, it's gonna cost me way more. Absolutely not. So as I'm driving around here and I am seeing other people that have done what I've wanted to do as far, especially on my property, but just in general, as I'm looking at prices of things, it's actually cheaper for me to do it here as opposed to if I wanted to do it in the places that I really wanted to do it at. And I needed God's eyes, God's vision, God's sight in order to see that everything that I've ever wanted, everything that we already have been talking about for years, um, and my desires, and Him wanting to give me that, and for us to, put that in motion, is in the place that He had brought me, in the place to where I've been crying and screaming out and frustrated and feeling like, you know, like I'm being punished, or that everything had gone wrong and I must have made a wrong turn or said something wrong, that God was just putting me here to punish me or whatever. He was showing me, just like Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope." So whether that's a job He has you doing, whether that's a place, a physical place that He is putting you in, or a person you have to encounter, when it looks like, God, like, why would you connect me here? Why would you put me here? Make sure you ask Him. If He put you there, make sure you're asking Him to see with His eyes and hear with His ears before you miss it. Because I was ready to pack my stuff up and make my way back to Michigan until we figure something else out. I was ready to give up on everything that God had planned for me and God was really trying to do and trying to give me, because I was still looking at it from my own worldly view because of the things that I no longer have. But I was given so much more in exchange for the things that I don't have access to. And the things that's not as accessible, I can still get there. It's just not it's just not as accessible. But there is so much more that I received in exchange for the things that I had to no longer have at my reach. So I love y'all in real life. Please keep me in y'all prayers because the warfare be ghetto. I be trying to record. I be trying to stay consistent week to week, but sometimes God either has me on the letting me take a little break to give me a little time to, to breathe. But did I really just breathe in this mic? I'm sorry. Give me time to breathe. And other times it's just that, like, I'm over here fasting and prayer, right? Fasting and prayer. I was telling my sisters the other day, I feel like even though I'm 34 and my stomach ain't as flat and I still got flaws and things I would like to change, I still, have little things I would like to change about myself. I still feel my best, like I feel my finest at 34, right? And it's not that, oh, like I be in the gym working out. It's that because I've been experiencing so much warfare that I need to take a 6-7 mile hike. I gotta go for a walk to try to, okay, breathe. And I be fasting. Them 3 days of nothing but water. Of course you're gonna lose the weight. Of course you're gonna tighten up, right? So I'm finer than I ever been. Not because, well, one, because the glory of the Lord is on me. He been working in and through me, right? So internally, I've gotten fine. I'm getting real close to finding it to fine, but on the inside. But he's still working on me. But aside from that, let me stop joking. A lot of fasting, because I'm experiencing so much warfare, especially to be able to record these episodes. So continue to be patient with me. I love y'all. I thank y'all for sticking beside your girl. Talk to you later. I love you all in real life. Bye.